It was a little scary at first because I didn't really know what to expect. I wasn't sure if we were gonna make more revenue than charging per project or if people were gonna churn left and right.
Welcome to the 91 Day Success Podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and I am thrilled today to have Jeff with me. Jeff and I were introduced actually through a coaching and consulting partner that we both work with, Karen Height at Height Digital and the Committed Mastermind. And I'm really excited to have an opportunity to chat with Jeff here today and learn a little bit more about things. Jeff, tell us just a little bit for those that don't know you. Tell us just a little bit about yourself and who it is that you serve, how you make their lives better, and then we'll dive into our conversation.
Sure, Jonathan, thanks for having me, and thanks, shout out to Karen for hooking us up. I appreciate it. My name is Jeff Minnichbach. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called No Limit Creatives, and we are a subscription-based graphic and video design service. We work with startups all the way up to Fortune 500 companies, helping them with their creative challenges. So we do designs from scratch. We're like their outsourced in-house team. And we also, for the larger enterprise clients, we're like an overflow team and help support their in-house designers. So we do a little bit of everything from digital and prints up to video editing and motion graphics.
That's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about your journey. So, as I understand from our pre-call and just some research I've done, you're a self-taught graphic designer, and now you've obviously moved into founder and CEO of No Limit Creatives. Talk to me a little bit about that transition. How did you get started, and what maybe pulled you into that? And then, based upon that, what were some of your next steps? What drew you to decide to make a business out of all this, Jeff?
I would say I've loved art and drawing in particular since I was a kid. I remember getting sketch pad after sketch pad from my parents and relatives, and I just loved to draw. So I took art every year in school, all the way through my senior year of high school. And actually, when all my friends were ready to go off to college, I wasn't sure that college was for me. I actually didn't know what I wanted to do yet. I did not go to college. I decided to just jump right into the working force. And I did a couple of odd jobs here and there, but I actually made my first website, I think, when I was about 11. And my dad bought me Microsoft Front Page, is what it was called,
Oh,
for
I remember.
paper.
Yes.
Really old school way of making websites, but that was a great tool to have. And I started to mess around with the web page and adding music and all the cool features and options they had. And I really enjoyed working on the computer and creating things. It was a totally different way of making art other than just drawing on a sketch pad. So I really enjoyed that early on. I've always had that entrepreneurial hustler mindset just from a very young age, watering flowers when neighbors were away or cutting lawns and just doing whatever I could to make money. But as I got a little bit older, I started freelance designing, and I was actually cold outreaching to small businesses all over Craigslist. And they had this
Mm.
small business category where they advertise. And I used to message people randomly and say, "Hey, would you like an image ad that would stand out more than just the text?" And that, I think, was where all this began. It was pretty successful early on. It was just too much work for me to manually try to reach out to hundreds of people a week and hope I got a few jobs out of it. I started freelancing through Elance and Upwork as a designer, and I saw pretty quickly that could be a really lucrative opportunity for me in the design world. So I became a top rated Upwork freelancer in 2016 and started to think, like, what's next for me? Because freelancing has been consistent with the income. You don't know what you're
Sure.
going to make next week or next month. So one of the challenges that I saw was a lot of businesses that I worked for had limited budgets, but they needed creatives consistently to grow and have more of a budget. So it was a weird spot for us both to be in. But I decided, what if I can make like a subscription model out of this where they pay a lower monthly rate I work on X number of designs at a time for them, and I just constantly feed them new creatives for their business every month. And I decided in 2018 to start this business, and it was called No Limit Creatives, and it just exploded. It took off from there, and I used a lot of Facebook marketing groups to push my services and come across as a design authority in the space. So it was very successful early on. And the rest is history. We're 6 years in. We've gone through two acquisitions now, and I'm actually back as part owner again, even though I sold 100% of it back in 2022, and I found myself back in with as part of the equity here, and then I'll see with two other partners now.
Very cool. What an interesting journey that you've gone through. One of the part that particularly intrigues me is I wasn't aware of the Craigslist stuff. I love the initiative you took there to reach out and do that. But being and working on a freelance platform like Upwork and then leveraging that and getting the idea to go, okay, we need to move into the subscription based model. I'm curious just because I know a lot of agencies. We have a lot of agencies that watch the podcast and listen to the podcast. A lot of agencies I know are struggling to try to figure out how do I make that move from project based revenue into subscription based. Obviously, that's something you've done very successfully. But talk to us a little bit, if you would, Jeff, about what was the thought process behind that, and how did that end up working? Because I know a lot of agencies get really worried about subscription basis going, man, I'm going to have to invest all this time up front and I'm never going to be able to make any money because everybody's always going to want more and more. From a subscription perspective that you've gone through, how did that work and what are some of the challenges you faced and maybe how did you overcome some of those things in that subscription based model?
Yes. Working per project was great. You can typically charge more. It's like a wholesale thing. You're not doing volume, so you can charge a little bit more, but it's not as consistent as subscriptions. And for me, it was all about how do I get a more consistent income, make this something real, not just like scared to death. What am I going to make next week kind of things. The subscription model has been phenomenal for us in terms of just more consistent income and revenue for the business. And you're able to predict things a little bit better that way than per project work or project based work. The one challenge I went through, I think, was how do I price this out? How do I make sure I
Yeah,
make money? I'm not losing money and I'm not so cheap that everybody wants it. And it's costing me money to service these clients. We do have some different things implemented where although it's an unlimited model, meaning you can make as many requests as you want in the platform, we work on as many revisions as you need. There's no restrictions to how many users are in our platform or brands or anything like that. We work on a set number of jobs at any given time. So if you have 50 designs, we can't physically work on all 50 today.
sure.
So we'll work on usually a couple at a time, send those over to our clients for review. And then when those are complete, we move on to the next. So it's, it helps us operate a lot smoother and more efficiently to do it that way than just saying, give me all your work and I'm going to do everything I physically can today. And that creates a lot of problems with consistency too. Your clients might get a lot one day and then the next 3 days they don't. And it's, nobody can run their businesses that way. So that was a big challenge, was like, how do we figure out what to price it at? Um, we bootstrapped this thing from day one. There was no investment or capital or anything like that. And we were very lean. Everybody was doing the jobs of 10 different people until we figured out what was going to work for the market that we're targeting. It was, that would be the biggest challenge, was just how to price it and make sure you guys make money. And you have to factor in staff and operational cost and tech and things like that. But we did go through a few different price adjustments until we found our sweet spots.
Mm. So interesting. And I think, again, a challenge that a lot of us look at as entrepreneurs and go, okay, how do I move into this model in a way that is balanced? And we want to be fair to our customers, but we also, like you said, we want to make sure we're making a profit and a reasonable profit. I like one of the comments you made there that really struck me. I think so often when we look at moving from project-based revenue into subscription-based revenue, we're trying to maintain the same exact margins that we had on every job that we did. And the reality, as you pointed out, at least in my mind, is we're really trading that consistency for a slightly lower margin, but that consistency ultimately leads to far more profitability in the long term because we have that work and that revenue coming in every single month. I think back to Adobe, not because of graphics, but just years ago when I started using Adobe, probably yourself as well, it was thousands of dollars to buy their whole suite. And then they
Yeah.
moved over to a monthly model. And now you can own, I don't know the exact dollar amount, but between 50 and $75 a month, I believe you can own like everything they do on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was a big shift, but it's caused them as a company, from what I've read, to have a massive increase in overall profitability because now they've got millions of customers paying them every single month. And we're not seeing at least I'm not seeing the propensity of bootleg copies and all that used to be floating out there that everybody talked about because simply a lot of people couldn't afford $2,000 for a suite. It's a whole lot easier if you sell a job and you're a graphic designer to be able to afford 50 to $75 and know you've got every tool in the arsenal that you may need to do that. So I don't know if that's a good comparison or not, but it's
You
from
nailed
what
that. Yeah. I think that's a great comparison because I remember how expensive Adobe was and everybody's using bootleg copies. They're 10 years old and they're outdated. And now with the Creative Cloud, you have access to all these crazy features and options and AI and fonts, and it's crazy. And we took that similar approach as Adobe, where yes, we're making less per job or per client, but for us, it was a numbers game and a volume thing. It's like, we'll charge less, but we're going to have a lot more customers. And I always liked that approach more than we have 10 clients that pay us a lot of money, but if one drops off or two drop off, you're in trouble. So
yeah, ouch.
I like this approach a lot more. And if I ran an agency myself, I would still do it that same way.
That's really interesting. Talk to me a little bit about just the how, as an owner, how does it feel to move from that project-based feast and famine mode? And I know I've been there where one month is amazing because you get tons of work coming in, you got tons of money coming in, and then the next 2 months you're like, "Oh crap, we're so busy fulfilling, we didn't have time to go sell." And then you get to the end of that 2 or 3 months period, and you're like, all that money's run out, and now where's the next job coming from? That feast or famine mode, I know I found just tremendous, just personal, and satisfaction and peace out of moving into a subscription model where, like you said, I've got lots of people subscribing, probably at a little bit lower rate, but I've now got a much more stable business in my mind than what I had before. Talk to me about that transition for you, moving from project to that, and how did that make you feel as a business owner to move from that project feast and famine into that more stable model?
It was a little scary at first because I didn't really know what to expect. I wasn't sure if we were going to make more revenue than charging per project or if people were going to churn left and right.
Sure.
But the transition was a little scary at first, but for me mentally and emotionally, it's been much, much better to go this direction for us. I'm not as concerned if we lose a handful of clients for different reasons, where before, as per project work, you're not sure if that person's going to continue working with you or they have nothing else to get designed. It's really, it was very scary for me. And then I got married, I think 11 years ago. Found out my wife was pregnant and I was freelancing then. And I was really scared. Like, oh my gosh,
Sure.
I'm a dad. I don't know how I'm going to pay our bills. We were just scraping by when I was freelancing until about 2016. And then it really took off. I was working with Pluto TV and McAfee and TrueCar. And I was starting to get that reputation and the reviews and stuff on Upwork and Elance that I could land bigger jobs. But this, I have no regrets moving in this direction as a subscription based business. And it's definitely been way more predictable, way more reliable. and a lot more profitable. And then we can scale rather easily where I was doing everything on my own and hiring freelancers to help me on different projects here and there if I got crazy busy. But now we've had almost 400 team members full time in the company before
Oh,
we did some optimization changes and stuff. But there was a point where things were just crazy busy and very chaotic at that scale. But I love it. I really enjoy the subscription model for sure.
you mentioned scalability, and one of the really impressive things that you've done is been able to grow to a seven figures in revenue in under 2 years. That's something that very few businesses do. Can you talk to me just a little bit about the strategies you guys used in order to get that incredible growth?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't have a business background or degree or anything. So this was a lot of trial and error for me. And hopefully some of the stuff I shared today will help people not make those same mistakes that I did. But I wasn't sure how to grow this thing. I just knew that there was a ton of demand for creative work. And like I mentioned earlier, I was in a bunch of Facebook groups that had a lot of agency owners and a lot of e-com brand owners. And I feel like I was one of the early adopters of this kind of model. There wasn't a lot of people in the groups that offered social media ad creatives, for example. And
Hmm.
that's where I niched down when I started was we only did social media ads.
Okay.
It was very popular and the demand was insane. And that's where we started to focus on. But as we got bigger, we had to entertain other ideas and people's needs. They wanted to get print work and digital and video and motion. So I started actually using freelance websites to recruit other designers because that's where I came from. And
Sure.
that was very successful. It's been a interesting journey, but Jonathan, I'm so sorry. What was the question again?
No, just, any specific strategies that helped you build to that
Oh,
seven
I'm sorry.
figures in
Okay.
2 years. Yeah,
Sorry. Hopefully you can cut that out.
I can.
But yeah, but the Facebook marketing groups for me were like the initial explosive growth opportunities that I found. It was like just all these Facebook groups, everybody wanted design work and nobody was offering it. And we didn't even do marketing until almost our third year in business. So we had no paid advertising running. I didn't know SEO. We had a website, but there was so much I didn't know at the time. I was a designer. I was a self-taught designer, like you mentioned, and I knew design. I did not know marketing, tech, platform builds, anything like that. So that the marketing groups on Facebook for me was huge, and that's where everything exploded. And then we got into other things in the future.
I love how you leverage those available tools, though, to really make that work and grow the business. That's fantastic. Jeff, you and I have not talked a lot, but I'm a huge AI nut, and I'm really curious with the changes that are happening. I'd love to get your perspective. I've talked to a lot of people on the marketing side who are candidly a little intimidated by AI. They're a little scared that it's going to take jobs away. That's not my opinion. I don't see it that way, but I'd love to get your perspective as someone who's been in the industry, graphic design and that type of thing. Before I maybe share where I'm coming from, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that business owner that says, "Hey, I don't need a subscription anymore. I can use AI to generate these images." Makes me want to laugh, but tell me just a little bit about your perspective on why a program that you guys have is still so important, even in the advent of AI, when we see things happening every day that are changing, that are giving us as entrepreneurs new tools. Why do we still need a graphic design team available to us?
It is scary, and I'll be the first to admit that when I started seeing things from Midjourney come out, I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" People can go on here and start making ads and graphics and stock photos, and it is definitely intimidating. As we mess around with AI, we're learning new things every day. The image side, the image generation side, is still a little wonky. And I
Mhm.
think for me, AI is something that I see as a tool for us to be more efficient and quicker, help with ideation and stuff for our projects. And there's a lot more to it than just saying, make me an ad,
Oh,
make me
yes.
a logo. There's it's obviously for me, it seems like there's a lot of logical thinking and a process behind how you prompt it and how you speak to AI. And you're not going to just get the results that you're envisioning in your mind unless you know how to prompt it. That's my opinion, anyways. But we want to be a company that embraces AI, that uses it to turn around jobs faster for people. But AI can't think like we can as far
Absolutely.
as like what are we envisioning, what needs to come from this idea. It's just something that doesn't happen right now. So I'm not super concerned. It's we're definitely embracing AI in different ways, but that's my thought on it.
I love the way you put that, and I'm thrilled to hear you guys are embracing it. I do think that's a wise move as a business person. But I agree with what you're saying. I often tell people that AI does a great job of amplifying existing skill and experience. And the example I use is I could go out and ask lots of questions from ChatGPT or any other model about how to be a heart surgeon. But I would never, ever become a great heart surgeon because I have no skill and no experience there. But with what you're talking about, you're right. As a graphic designer, there may be things that you know and have experience in that tools like Midjourney and others could help expedite parts of that process. But yet, and I'm not as informed, so tell me if I've got this wrong, but I think like logo design, I may be able to, as a client, come up with some ideas and then come to you and say, okay, Jeff, here's some ideas that I have. But Midjourney and those tools are not going to create the high resolution vector graphic layered images that I need for all of the other things that I need to use my logo on. And the first time I go to print something at a commercial printer and try to give them a 1024 by 1024 pixel image that's not vectorized, I'm going to get exactly what I paid for, which is junk.
You're
That's
right.
my perception. Am I right on that as I
Yeah.
see that from a business owner's perspective?
Yes, you obviously know a little bit about design and print. So yeah, for for logos specifically and other types of print work, a lot of times you need scalable vector files that can
Mhm.
be blown up to any resolution without losing quality. And you don't get that from Midjourney and ChatGPT. It's there's no layers, there's no source file. It's just a JPEG or PNG, whatever they output there. It's just a flat rasterized image. And you can't really do a lot with it. You can't edit it. There's not layers to edit. So for us, like we really like to use it more for ideas. And then, oh man, I
Yeah.
never even thought about that. Let's take this up a notch and go from there. So I hope that in the future, these AI tools will be a way to get us 95% of the way to the finish line on a job and then let somebody come in and fine tune everything. But it has a ways to go on the image side, the generation side.
Oh, no question about it. And I don't know if we're ever personally, although I'm crazy about AI and I believe it's a great tool, I don't think we're ever going to get to that 85 to 90% status, just because, especially with graphic design, because there's so much subtlety and important stuff that doesn't carry through. Again, whether it's print based or vector based, or doesn't really matter where we're going. The first time you want to experiment about having ChatGPT or Midjourney actually put text on an image that's spelled correctly, you'll realize that it would have been a lot faster and probably less expensive to hire a designer to do that for you. So,
You,
it's- yeah.
you create people and they have six fingers. There's still some weird things going on there. So you're right on that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm curious, Jeff, what do you guys do? I'm assuming a lot of your team is remote, obviously, with the number of employees you have and all that. How do you keep your remote team engaged and innovative and up to speed with all of the new trends that are going on when you've got a remote team like that?
Great question. We're 100% remote. We've been since day one, and we have people in 15 different countries or something now. So everybody Most of the people, English is not their first language, so that's a little bit of a struggle for us, and then obviously not being in a work setting together, it's even harder. We embrace technology as much as possible. We use Slack for internal communications. We have hundreds of Slack channels. We do regular Zoom calls, daily, weekly, monthly town hall meetings. We have a pretty strong culture, in my opinion. We do a lot of events and contests and things just to get people pumped up and feel like they're part of something. And we really embrace all the technology for everybody communicating and gaming and stuff together just to create a stronger workforce for us. So that's definitely that is probably one of the biggest challenges I think we face is running a remote business where you don't personally know everybody. You haven't physically been in a room with everybody. Uh, it's hard to get people motivated and engaged and staying on track. And the work from home life is it's easy to slack off and just say, man, I don't want to get dressed today. I don't want to watch my favorite show for an hour. But I think we've done a great job at developing a strong culture in the company, and everybody seems incredibly dedicated and devoted to NLC and everything that we're about.
Congratulations on that growth. I think that a lot of us have moved into that remote environment since COVID happened in 2020, but it's so cool to hear that you started that even ahead of time. Jesse, I know you guys do work on a subscription basis, and I want to give you an opportunity here to talk to that entrepreneur, that agency owner, that business owner that says, okay, why do I need a graphic artist or a team of graphic artists that are available? What's that going to do for my business? Here's your chance for your sales pitch. Tell me why does an average business need NLC as part of that team, and what's that ultimately mean for them as a business to be able to have those professional graphic resources available to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there's a lot of tools obviously online that can make graphics like Canva and stuff, but you get what you get from those platforms.
Yes.
You have certain things you can work with in there, and if you don't have an eye for design, it doesn't really matter how good the tool is. If you're not a creative person and you're not able to pick things apart visually and know what's good or what's bad or what's going to work for your business or what's not, then it's you're defeated before you even get started. So for a service like ours, we hire a lot of mid-level and senior level designers to elevate the brands and their experience and their overall image and just take it up to a whole nother level than what they could do on their own. For me, starting out in the ad creative space, it was a no-brainer. Any business that wanted to grow needed to market and advertise, and you need good creatives to do that. You cannot I shouldn't say you cannot. Sometimes you can get away with some Microsoft Paint graphics. They work really well on social once in a while, but if you're really serious about your agency's or your e-com brand's image and your reputation, you want to get the highest degree of design that you possibly can, so you can really look the elevated part and really get customers to convert. So for us, we take a lot of pride in our work and our skill sets and our experience, and obviously the quality. And we have a lot of agencies now that actually outsource all their design work to us for all their clients. They don't even touch design anymore, which has been great for both sides of that. But we love it's semi white labeled, but they're using us for all their clients' creative work. And then they can choose whether they want to upsell on that, sell it for a different price, or just work it into their plans. But it's for us, it's all about putting out the highest quality work possible and trying to make somebody look really good and really reputable.
I want to reiterate it, someone that cares a lot about branding and the importance of that. Having a professional graphic artist to help you do that right, to create that consistency, to create those visuals that are going to engage your audience. Every study I've ever read says that visuals are the first thing that your prospects engage with. And if you're missing the mark, it's going to cost you thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dollars in your business just because your visuals are off. And something that you guys have with your subscription program can make getting access to those graphical resources incredibly affordable to anybody along the way.
I think too, just from like a time saving and a cost saving perspective, it's like as a business owner, do you really want to be trying to do design work when you have other things to work on in your business? And outsourcing to a service like ours, we've got the price points and the packages, and we've already done all the screening and finding the best people we can for you. You don't have to go out and look on Upwork or freelancer.com and try to figure out who is going to be reliable and who's going to give you the best possible quality. So just from a business owner's perspective, it's saves a lot of time and money in the long run than trying to do it yourself or hire in house in most cases.
Absolutely. Again, we both know it's always best to leave it to the experts and to learn from the
For
experts and
sure.
let them help guide us. Ultimately, it's a lot less expensive for us.
Yes.
Jeff, one of the questions I love to ask our guests, especially entrepreneurs like yourself that have grown businesses, and that is our podcast is called the 91 Day Success Podcast. And so one of the things that we took this from a book that Russell Brunson put out, actually called 30 Days. And I just didn't think 30 days was long enough. If you would put yourself in the shoes that you were either going to yourself be starting or you advising somebody who was going to be starting a new business, you had $1,000 to invest in the business. You don't have to worry about food and shelter and all that, but you've got $1,000 to invest in the business. What would you do, Jeff, in the first 91 days or 3 months in order to build that business to with a goal of generating $10,000 in revenue? Any thoughts? And again, I know I didn't really prep you for this. There's no right or wrong, but any thoughts that you might have on things you would do or that you would advise people to do in that scenario?
I think just establishing the business legally is the most important part to start with. But once you have that, that doesn't cost much either. For me, I would have rather gotten into marketing right away
Mm,
than try to do everything else that I was doing. We just dove right into servicing accounts without really having a plan. So, although I don't have didn't have a business plan, and I don't think you really need a business plan to get where you want to be in business. Um, if I had started with marketing right from the get go, we would probably be a lot further along than we are today because once Facebook groups and those more organic ways didn't work as well anymore, we were starting over. We had no marketing running at that time. There was nothing to keep the momentum going for us at all. So we had to, it was like starting from scratch at that point after a couple of years with no marketing. So for me, I'd probably be investing money in social media ads. I think that's worked historically a lot better for us than Google or other platforms, and it's cost us a lot less, and we've just been able to get a lot more value out of social media. So for me, I wouldn't even put that into people right at to start. I think you can
sure.
do a substantial amount of work as a single business owner without any help. And for me, I would like to put that money towards marketing, generate some business and consistent revenue, and then hire after that. So that's how I would do it.
Great advice. I appreciate that. And I really appreciate your perspective, having gone through that and done some of that. I appreciate that perspective incredibly. Talk to me a little bit about your vision for the future of No Limit Creatives. What does that look like as you look down the road? I don't know how good your crystal ball is, but talk to me a little bit about your vision, at least for where you'd like to see things go and where you envision things happening with your team.
I so I had mentioned I sold the business in 2022, and that was after 4 years of running the business. We started to plateau, and I felt like
Hmm.
we couldn't move further along without some kind of capital or investors or selling the company to somebody who could help us get to that next step as a business. So, unfortunately, that acquisition, it didn't work out how we had hoped. They weren't really able to do much of anything that we had needed to do to get to the next level. We're back on track now. And for us, the future is a lot more tech focused. We'd like to become more of a SaaS platform than a service based business. So, utilizing a lot more technology and AI, we have our custom built platform now that we're revamping from the ground up. So, it's going to be NLC 2.0. It'll have some AI integrations, some white label options, Zapier integrations, API stuff, a lot of different things where people can do a lot more in our platform than just request designs. We'd like to have something in the future where once we make your social media ads, for example, you can go post them right away from the platform and
Very
it
cool.
can be campaign performance right from the platform. And that allows our team to know what's working and what's not for you. Because right now we're in the dark on all that. We just make the creatives, we pass it on to the clients and they do their thing. So we don't actually ever have any insights into what's performing well for a company or what's not unless they tell us. The future for us is to keep people in our platform as much as possible and see how much value there actually is to the point where they can't live without it. So that's the future. And then we're looking into doing some M&As and merging with companies or acquiring companies that are either similar to us or that complement our business and do things that we don't do, like web design, development, product photography, 3D rendering, stuff that we know that our clients could benefit from, but we don't really want to become a expert in those spaces.
Sure, sure. It makes a ton of sense. Jeff, if people are watching, as I mentioned, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of agency owners that listen and watch the podcast. They want to learn more about No Limit Creatives. What's the best way for them to either reach out and learn about your programs, your offerings, or possibly even connect with you?
Our website is very simple. It's nlc.com. And I love to personally meet founders and business owners and marketing people. So I'm always open to chatting with people personally. And LinkedIn is the best way for that. I've been really using that tool heavily the last year or so, just networking, meeting new people. So always available to chat to anybody that needs something.
Awesome. Jeff, as we bring the plane in for a landing here, I want to thank you for your time. It's been a great conversation. Candidly, you've inspired me on a couple of things that I hadn't thought of that I'll share with you offline that like, ooh, hey, this gave me a new idea. And I absolutely love it when that happens. Really want to thank you. And I want to encourage any of the business owners, the agency owners out there that if you don't have graphical resources that you can rely on, I can't begin to stress how important that is for your branding, for your imagery, and for just your success as a business. Do yourself a favor and at least take a look at what No Limit Creatives is doing and what Jeff and his team have got set up. It is absolutely worth the time to investigate, and in many cases, worth the time to invest in that because I think you'll find it a great return for what you're doing. So, Jeff, thank you again for your time today. So grateful for you. If you've been watching the podcast, we're grateful that you joined in. Thank you so very much for sticking with us, and we will see you on the other side. Make it a great day, everybody.